Let's talk about Donald Trump's foreign policy. Is it just a storm of unpredictable chaos, or is there some kind of calculated strategy hiding in plain sight? He challenges allies, he gets friendly with adversaries, and he pretty much tears up the old rulebook. It really leaves everyone asking the same question. Is this all just impulse, or is there a grand plan we're not seeing? Today, we're going to dive right into that very puzzle. So here's the game plan. First, we'll set up the central puzzle itself. Then, we're going to explore three totally different theories that try to make sense of it all. Is it just a ruthless focus on power over principles? Or maybe a high-stakes gamble to split Russia and China? Or could it be something even more radical? A plan to literally carve up the world? Then at the end, we'll see if we can tie it all together. And this, right here, is the billion-dollar question. From Brussels to Beijing, leaders and intelligence agencies are all trying to crack this code. Is there some kind of coherent Trump doctrine, or is the world just constantly reacting to a series of unpredictable whims? The answer, either way, has huge implications for pretty much everyone. This quote really sums up the default assumption for a lot of people, that there's just no plan. But what if that's a huge miscalculation? What if the unpredictability isn't a bug, but it's actually a feature? Let's dig into our first theory, which argues there's a very old, very clear idea behind all the noise. Our first theory is that Trump is a classic realist. Now, that doesn't just mean he's being realistic. In the world of foreign policy, realism is a specific, cold-blooded way of looking at the world that's guided leaders for centuries. Here's the key idea for a realist. Things like democracy and human rights are nice, but they're luxuries. What really matters is power, national interest, cold, hard advantage. It's a whole philosophy that puts power first, and principles come in a distant second, if at all. And look no further than the war in Ukraine for a perfect example of this. On one side, you have President Biden's view, and it's all framed in the language of principles, defending freedom, doing what's right. But on the other side, you've got Trump's approach, which just cuts straight to power and leverage. Who has the cards? It's a fundamental clash between two worldviews, idealism versus pure, unfiltered realism. So how does this realist view actually play out? Well, it starts by seeing the whole global system not as a benefit, but as a bad deal for America. America First isn't just a catchy slogan, it's a declaration of a new, purely transactional approach. Allies aren't partners in shared values anymore. They're like entries on a balance sheet that needs to be audited. And this leads to what some are calling a necessary shock, deliberately rattling allies like NATO members to basically force them to pay up and carry their own weight. But what if the goal is even bigger than just shaking up alliances? Theory number 2 suggests a much more audacious plan, like a high-stakes diplomatic maneuver aimed squarely at America's two biggest rivals, Russia and China. To really get this theory, you gotta look back in time a bit. As you see here, back in 1972, Nixon famously went to China to pull it away from the Soviet Union. It was a brilliant move orchestrated by Henry Kissinger. The theory goes that Trump is trying to pull a reverse Kissinger, getting cozy with Putin's Russia in order to break its no-limits partnership with Xi's China. Now, let's be clear, the goal here isn't to make Russia a friend. No way. It's much more pragmatic than that. The whole idea is to give Moscow an off-ramp, offer just enough incentives, maybe a path to lifting sanctions or something, so that it's not totally dependent on Beijing anymore. You're just trying to drive a wedge, even a small one, right into the heart of that Russia-China axis. But let's not kid ourselves. This is a massive, high-stakes gamble. What if Russia just takes the concessions and gives nothing back? As one expert put it, Putin might just see Trump as a gift that keeps on giving, someone whose actions create chaos among Western allies for free. And the absolute nightmare scenario? The plan completely backfires, leaving America's allies feeling betrayed and the Russia-China axis stronger than ever. And that brings us to our third and, honestly, most radical theory. What if the real plan is bigger than just redoing alliances or splitting up enemies? What if it's about ripping up the current world map and drawing a brand new one based on a very old idea, spheres of influence? Just listen to this statement about Greenland. This isn't diplomatic language. This is the language of acquisition. It's treating a part of a sovereign country, and a NATO ally, by the way, like it's just a piece of real estate you can buy or take for strategic reasons. And this line of thinking doesn't stop there. It extends to America's closest neighbors. Here, he's basically just musing about Canada, one of the US's oldest and tightest allies, becoming the 51st state. The message underneath is pretty clear. If you're in the neighborhood, your sovereignty might be up for negotiation. And finally, this one, about the Panama Canal. The feeling here is just one of ownership. We built it, so it should be ours. So you've got Greenland, Canada, and Panama. These aren't just random spots on a map. They all point toward a very specific and very grand vision. What do these three places have in common? They're all in the Western Hemisphere, what's historically been called America's backyard. And this isn't some new idea, it's a throwback to 19th century concepts like the Monroe Doctrine, the policy that basically declared the entire Americas as a US zone of influence, off limits to other powers. What's the big risk with this spheres of influence approach? Well, this quote from Indian analyst Gautam Chakramaney really gets to the heart of the irony. In trying to counter China by using similar bullying tactics, does America risk becoming the very thing it's trying to contain? It's a powerful question. So we've looked at three really different pieces of this puzzle: the cold realism, the crafty reverse Kissinger, and the radical spheres of influence. And yet none of them seem to fit perfectly on their own. But when you start to put them together, a picture does begin to take shape. And that picture is one of massive global disruption. Let's just lay it all out one last time. Theory 1, realism. Shake up your allies to make them stronger. Theory 2, the reverse Kissinger. Split your adversaries to keep them weak. And Theory 3, spheres of influence. Redraw the whole map so you can dominate your home turf. Three different strategies, but they all point to one disruptive vision. Which, of course, brings us to the ultimate question. Is there one single master plan tying all this together? Or is the chaos, the sheer unpredictability of it all, the entire point? Maybe the real strategy is to have no predictable strategy at all, just to keep both your friends and your enemies permanently off balance. And maybe that's the most important takeaway here. At its very core, this seems to be a doctrine of pure disruption. The big question for the rest of the world is whether this disruption is just a wrecking ball smashing a stable system to pieces, or if it's more like a controlled demolition, clearing the ground so that something totally new can be built from the ashes.